Welcome guys to another Pure Knowledge video. This is the Biology 2025 review. Yes, the Biology 2025 review. And of course, just to remind you that our class are ongoing, so please to join. You can join if you want that one. Please to join our classes. Ones are always guaranteed right here. All right. So WhatsApp number is in the title and the description. Don't be hesitate to give us a WhatsApp message and we will work out a schedule. All right. So let's go. So the first question says outline four activities that occur within a seed during germination, right? First one is water absorption. And of course, the seed absorb water through the micropyle, right? Causing it to swell and the seed coat or the tester to rupture, right? The second activity we could say is enzyme activity. Of course, we know that the water activates the enzyme in the seed, right? And then those enzymes begin to break down the stored food that is in the seed to glucose, right? So the embryo can use it to grow. And we could also refer to respiration, where the seed undergoes aerobic respiration using stored food to release energy for the necessary cell division needed and growth. Also, we could say growth, or we could say the emergence of seedling, right? This is when the radicle emerges first, followed by the plumule or the shoot, right? Which eventually grows into a young plant. And we could also say, utilization of stored food. But yes, these are four reasons or four activities, sorry, that occur during germination. And anything along this line should be correct. All right. Next, we said that they're asking you to make a large label diagram to show the internal structure of dicotyledonous seed, right? Or dicot seed. And of course, you should have a dicot looking something like this, right? And it's labeled, it says annotate the diagram drawn, so you should label it, right? And it's 3 marks, so that means I guess 3 to 4 of any 3 to 4 label that you made would have been correct, right? So we look at this, we say you should have the epicotyle, the hypocotyle, right? And the epicotyle basically turns into the shoot. We have the seed coat, we have the cotyledon, and we have everything as the embryo, right? So anything along this avenue should be correct. Okay, moving on. Next question, we look at a diagram here that shows the levels of two hormones involved in the human menstrual cycle over a 2 month period, right? We have the estrogen and the progesterone. And make note, this is a 2 month period, right? Now, this shows, of course, progesterone and estrogen. So the first question says, on figure 1, shade the 2 periods during which menstruation is likely to take place. Remember that menstruation occurs in the first stage of the cycle. So it would be because between day 0 to around 5, right? And then after that, we have the two hormones building back the uterus lining to prepare for implantation. So that means these are the 2 phases, right? From 0 to 5, 0 to 5 days would be the days that you would come, right? So that's where you should shade. Then it says state the level of estrogen on day 28 of the first cycle and the level of this estrogen in day 28 of the second cycle. Now we can see where this is estrogen on the first cycle. The first cycle, right? And this is estrogen on the second cycle. We can see that the estrogen level is higher in the second cycle than in the first cycle. So that is it. So the level of the estrogen on day 28 of the second cycle is higher than on day 28 of the first cycle. Going good so far, guys, because you're just analyzing. So that should be good. All right, next question says, suggest one reason for a difference stated in CII. So why is estrogen higher in the second cycle than the first? And there are many reasons, right? But the most prominent reason that you guys should be affair with is that the woman may have become pregnant, which causes estrogen level to remain high. Right, there are other reasons like hormone imbalance, use of hormone contraceptives, stress, other medical conditions, lifestyle factors, right? But the main reason that you should put there is becoming pregnant, right? Because remember, the cycle works like this, right? Estrogen after menstruation occurs, right? Estrogen is the first hormone that is released, right? And the estrogen is responsible for building the uterine lining, the womb, right? And then around day 13 or 14, that's when estrogen peaks. Then after day 14, it starts to fall. As you can see here in the first cycle, you see it falling, right? Around 28, it remains constant to 20. It falls around day 20 and remain constant to day 28 when it start to rise again because menstruation just occurs. So after menstruation occur, we can see the levels start to rise again, right? But this time it rises about the same level to day 13, 14, and then it dips. But then instead of falling and continuing, remaining constant, it start to rise, right? And why would it start to rise? It's because it will want to to make the uterine lining let it remain um ready for the implantation or not implantation. Sorry, it will be ready to provide the baby that is implanted, right? Or the embryo that is implanted with the necessary nutrients and oxygen. Because remember that the blood is what supply the baby with nutrients, right? And oxygen. So in order for the baby to get those, the hormone need to remain, right? So that it can provide the baby with the necessary requirements. And you can see the same with progesterone, right? Progesterone normally takes over after estrogen. Because you can see here, right? Where the estrogen level. All right, so follow me, guys. So look at the progesterone, right? Follow me, right? So the progesterone we can see, let's start again, right? The progesterone starts here, right? At day 0. And we can see where it remains constant because when it remains constant between day, let's say 5 to day about 13, while it's remaining at a low level, the estrogen is high. And the estrogen at that time is making the uterine lining um thicker, right? Building the uterine lining, right? Then where the estrogen drop, we see where the progesterone rises because it's taking over, right? And we see where it remains high, but it takes a dip, right? After right to day 28, right? Because at that time, the body is getting ready to for menstruation again, right? And we see during the menstruation process, it's falling, right? And it falls right back down and it remains constant between the, let's say, 5 and the 13. And then we see where when that is low, estrogen is high, right? And then we see where estrogen take a fall while the progesterone rises. But this case, we don't see it falling because it should be falling at day 28, getting ready for menstruation cycle. But instead, it's rising. And I see it's rising higher than the estrogen because progesterone plays a way more important role in thickening the uterine lining, right? So, so based on the evidence seen in the graph, right? We can safely deduce that this lady became pregnant in the second cycle, right? So let's look at the other question. It says, um, state how the level of progesterone on day 28 of the first cycle differs from the level on day 28 of the second cycle. Now we can see if we see where the level of progesterone on day 28 of the first cycle is lower, while the level of progesterone on day 28 of the second cycle is high. And we can see that where 28 here, day 28 here is it's around here, while day 28 here is way up here, right? So that is one mark. And then now it says using the table below, compare the two cycles by outlining four comparisons that account for the difference of why progesterone is higher. And you're going to use the graph to state the difference of progesterone in different time to compare both the first cycle and the second cycle. So what we can clearly see is that progesterone level is low on day 28 of the first cycle. Now we saw that it's low, right? It's right here. And then we can see this the second thing is that the progesterone peaks around 21 days, day 21, then decreases in the first cycle. So let's see, day 21, progesterone peak, right? Peaks around there, and then it falls, right? In the second cycle, we can see progesterone show continuous upward trend after day 28, after day 21, sorry. So let's look at day 21. We would see where after day 21 here, instead of fall, it continues to rise. Right? So we're just typing what we see, guys. Next one says progesterone follows a complete rise and fall pattern. Yes. Says day 20, the first cycle is rise, it's fall, rise and fall. Right? Next one, the second cycle, progesterone appeared to be in rising phase without completely falling by day 28. So there's less rising, more rising in the second cycle because we see once it starts to rise, it doesn't stop. Right? And then now finally we can say progesterone level at day 28 is similar to the levels at the beginning of the cycle in the first phase. And let's look at the first phase. It starts here and then it ends here. So it's the same line, right? We can check it. See it there? Ends there, right? While on the second phase, we see progesterone at day 28 is much higher than any point in the first cycle. Then it's the progesterone at day 28 is much higher than any point in the first cycle, right? So we see here it's higher than any point. So based on that, guys, we just have to deduce the graph, right? So comment if you had something different, comment what you think about it. All right. Next, it says the following occurrences may take place in the human reproductive system. So one, Mary's corpus luteum failed to develop after fertilization of her ovum egg. 8-year-old Ruth had her ovaries removed. Why Ruth? Why? Brian vast difference was severed. Wow. Okay. All right. Then no, we're saying complete table two below, right? By suggesting one consequence of each occurrences. So one consequence of Mary's corpus luteum fail, right, to develop is that Mary will likely, right, experience an early miscarriage or failed implantation because the corpus luteum is essential for producing progesterone, right? So it's a corpus luteum job to produce progesterone. And we know that progesterone maintain the lining of the uterus, builds the lining of the uterus to facilitate implantation. So if there's no corpus luteum, then pregnant, the implantation cannot occur. So it will likely be a miscarriage or a failed implantation. Next one says 8-year-old Ruth had her ovaries removed, and without the ovaries, you wouldn't really have the hormones, right? So Ruth would not undergo puberty normally, as her body will lack estrogen. And estrogen is needed for secondary sexual characteristic development like breasts, right? And all of the things that women have, right? So these are the things that would affect Ruth, right? Next, we said Brian's vas difference was severed, right? And that means that Brian would be sterile. He wouldn't be able to have a child, right? Because the vas difference, right? The vas difference is what? Remember, guys, about the vas difference, right? It transport mature sperm from the epididymis to the urethra, right? Where it mixes with other fluids to form semen. So without that, Brian would be sterile. He wouldn't be able to have children, right? But he will still maintain normal hormone production and sexual function. But no sperm to be transferred, mean no children. Next question. And that is 25 marks. So section A, let me know what you did on that, guys. Next one says John, a high school student, spends several hours each day browsing Facebook and TikTok. Is Jane or John? Well, I'm horrible with names. I think that's John, right? She felt increasingly pressured to become as thin as people she admired while browsing. So she began to take diet pills constantly. List three social effects of the abuse of diet pill. Diet pill have a lot of you know, social effects. Social mean people, right? Society, right? So she could have conflict with her family. And of course, they are not set. There are like many different social things that you could write there. So you can write, tell me what you wrote in the comments, right? Disagreement may, parents may disagree about taking a diet pill, so it could have conflict within the family. She could have social withdrawal, mainly focusing on taking the pill, watching her image. Because somebody that takes diet pill is really not confident in their body, right? Or their body image. So that she may avoid social events, especially those involving food, right? And it could also affect their schooling, right? Their academic performance, because she might be preoccupied with the weight, right? And the health, right? And the not taking the pills and watching if the pill is working. And that could distract her from her school activities, right? So, I mean, those are three, and you can tell me what you wrote. Question two states to explain one way in which the constant use of diet pill may be harmful to Jan's health, right? And you have to know what diet pill has really, right? So diet pill can, I think this one, I'm not sure if you guys had that. Let me know how this diet pill question is, if you guys found it simple, easy. Right. For me, it's kind of a little hardish, right? But yeah, diet pill contains, things that can affect your heart, right? It can cause cardiovascular problems with prolonged use, and these stimulants can, elevate your blood pressure and your heart rate, right? It can also damage your liver and your kidney, right? Which can be, life-threatening over time. So those are some possible reasons there. Next, it says name four illegal substances that may be abused by teenagers and young adults. And remember, the key word is illegal, right? So cocaine, illegal. Marijuana in some places, right? Because not all places, but marijuana in some places are illegal. Something called ecstasy. Some people say Molly, you know, would maybe a substance that could be abused. Heroin, could also be a substance, right? So, moving on. A study, right, was conducted to investigate the use of diet pill by people in the Caribbean, in a Caribbean country. The data from the study is shown in figure 2 below. All right, so here's the data. Next question says, with reference to figure 2, which population have used diet pills the most? And of course, teens is the highest, so teens it is. Next, suggest two reasons why population identifying C1, which is teens, show the greatest abuse of diet pills. And I mean, that's up to perception, right? Again, it's a thinking question. It's not, it's just common sense, right? So it's up to you now to think during the exam, right? So I think that social media, because since them use the example at the top that, she was watching TikTok and Facebook. I just put back that because them give me one free. So I put that. Teens are heavily influenced by social media platform where they're exposed to unrealistic body image, people who do them weight, we do them body and all of these things, and they are, influenced because they want to be like them. So this can lead to them using that pill. Then really give one for free. Then we can say peer pressure. Peer pressure is always something. General things can work. Peer pressure in adolescence, is a period where individuals are highly conscious of their appearance and they're easily influenced by their peers. So the desire to fit in or meet beauty standards can drive teens to use diet pills excessively. Right? That's 2 marks. And of course, it's 2 marks, so you don't have to write all that I wrote. All right. Next, we said that the Caribbean community, CARICOM, is concerned about the abuse of diet pills in the Caribbean. So just 3 measures that could be put in place to reduce the frequency of the use of diet pills in the Caribbean. And these are again, common sense. You have to think it out, right? So again, we're talking about diet pills. So we could say to reduce the use, we could say implement stricter laws and enforcement on the importation and sale and distribution of diet pills across the Caribbean member state. We always have to put it, use back what is in the question, right? So you could clamp down on it, make sure that prescription for all weight loss medication are imposing heavy penalties for unauthorized sale, right? So ensure that laws are stricter. Next, when it come on to, the importation of it and getting it. Next one we say you could have education campaign. You can never go wrong with education, right? In schools and communities, social media that highlight the danger of diet pill, right? Abuse. Tell them how can it, because a lot of people don't know that it really stimulants can affect their heart, right? So promote healthy body image, teach sustainable weight management practice through proper nutrition and exercise. And of course, you can, have a mental health program also and nutritional counseling service through Caribbean communities, right? That's so that people can, you can merge the mental health with some counseling, right? So that people with body issues concerned can have a support system, right, that they can talk to and get medically sound alternative advice for taking diet pills, things like exercising, proper dieting, if you really want to lose weight and proper guidance, right? So those are some reasons that I came up with, and that total 15 marks for this section. Next section says, name 3 organelles which are only found in plants. And we're going to more biological stuff now, and we know that there are a lot of them, chloroplast, cell wall, large central vacuole, right, is some that we know, right? Then there are others, of course. There are others, right? There are many. All right. Next, we have state the function of any two of the organelles. So chloroplast contains chlorophyll, and these are where photosynthesis occur, light energy is converted into chemical energy, etc., etc., etc. We know the green part of the plant capture light. Yes. Next, The cell wall, we know that it provides the plant structure, support, and protects the plant cell, right? Now we talk about maintaining the cell shape, prevent use of water, don't cause the cell to burst, etc., etc., etc. Of course, this is just for educational purposes, only 2 marks, so 1 line is fine. Capturing. So once I say contain chlorophyll using which is involved in important in photosynthesis, you are right. Next, we say outline how the structure of mitochondrion is suited to its function. No, I thought this question was a bit hard. I thought it was a little bit hard. Um, the structure of the mitochondrion. I mean, this, is a little bit, it sounds capish to me, right? But, if you did extra reading or, your teacher covered it, excellent. So this is something what they look for. The structure of the mitochondria is suited to its function in energy production, because mitochondria is for energy, because it has a double membrane structure. That's for one. With the inner membrane highly folded, it's folded into what we call the cristae, right? And these folds increase the surface area for chemical reaction of cellular respiration, right? So the folds help the mitochondria to respire more, right? Additionally, the matrix contains enzyme necessary for the Krebs cycle, while the inner membrane has protein for the electron transport chain, making highly efficient for energy ATP production, right? So, I mean, if we have the cristae, if we have up to here the cristae, and the cristae helping increasing the surface area for chemical reactions in for cellular respiration, then we would be spot on there. Next question says, complete the table below by describing the expected observation if the indicated cells are placed in each of the given types of solution and providing explanation for the expected observation given in CI. Then we say the animal cell. Solution type is concentrated sugar. So this is animal cell placed in concentrated sugar. You know that the animal cell will shrink. Why? Because water will be moving out of the cell by osmosis. Because the concentration of sugar solution, right, has a lower water potential compared to the cell contents, right? So the concentrated sugar has less water. So the water is going to move from the cell, which has a high concentration. So remember, osmosis is moving from a place of high water molecules moving from a place of high concentration, which is inside the cell, to a place of low concentration to the concentrated sugar solution to try and balance it out. Right? Then when animal cell is placed in distilled water, the cell will swell and may eventually burst. That's very important because to burst because animal cell doesn't have a cell wall. The explanation is that water will move into the cell by osmosis, right? Because distilled water has a higher water potential compared to the cell contents, meaning that the water moving from a place of high concentration, which is the distilled water, to a place of low concentration, which is inside the cell. Because remember, the cell is 80% water and 20% other minerals, right? So distilled water would be 100% water, so it would be pure water. So it will move from a place of higher concentration, distilled water, to lower concentration inside the cell. Next, we say plant cell. All right, plant cell. What's going to happen if you place plants in concentrated sugar solution? Well, the cell will undergo plasmolysis, if you have that, right? If you remember that, right? And plasmolysis is the cell membrane will pull away from the cell wall and the cytoplasm will shrink, right? Because remember that the cell wall will still keep the plant cell in shape, but the membrane will pull away from the cell wall because the water will be moving from inside of the cell to outside of the cell. It's the same thing. It's moving from a place of high concentration inside the cell. Water is moving from a place of high concentration inside the cell to a place of low concentration outside of the cell, right? To nullify, sorry. Then when you place plant cell in distilled water, the cell will become turgid, firm, and will not burst because the cell wall will protect it, right? And it's the same thing. Water will be moving from a place of high concentration, distilled water, to a place of low concentration inside the cell. However, the cell wall make it stays. Um, prevent it from burst and it just becomes turgid and firm. All right, so that is this table. Moving on, section B. Nice. So let me know how you feel about section A, guys. Nice. Let's go. Section B. You're a member of an environmental team that is visiting a landfill that is reaching its capacity for garbage it can store. The operation manager of the landfill is interested in creating a plan to increase the space and decrease the negative environmental impact of the landfill. State four challenges associated with recycled and manufactured products. And again, this is a bit of a thinking question. You have to reason it out. So, what are some problems with recycling? Well, high cost, right? The process of collecting, transporting, you have pay garbage, men, you have pay crew people, right? And then the processing of recycling materials can be very, 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 very expensive, right? So high cost. Then separation and sorting. Sometimes it's very difficult, right, to separate and sort different types of recycle. Re, you know, sorry, right? Sorry, my sinus acting up. But anyway, I'm getting through this video, right? It's difficult to separate and sort different type of material, right? Recyclable material. So plastic, metal, glass, you have to separate them for proper recycling. So separation and sorting. Just imagine you have separate and sort a big landfill. That's crazy. Right? Then we say contamination. Because recycled materials can be contaminated with all heap of things, food waste, chemicals, things that cannot be recyclable, like things that cannot be recycled, right? Non-recyclable materials, and reduce their quality and value. And then we can also look at it that there's not a lot of recycling facilities, right? Not all areas have access to proper recycling facilities, leading to improper disposal of recycling materials, right? Then we look at the next question, right? Bacteria present at the landfill break down biodegradable materials, right? Explain one possible environmental issue which may occur as a result. So the breakdown of biodegradable material by bacteria can produce methane gas. And methane gas, of course, we know is a powerful greenhouse gas, and it can contribute to things like global warming and climate change. There's also other things, right? We have odor pollution, right? The smell, we have vector attraction, and we have contaminations,